So people ask, why would you be a fan of Land Rovers, Range Rovers, etc.? Well, I suppose it goes back to influences in childhood, really. And when I was a little boy, one of the friends of a family, he had a Range Rover, and it was a 1974. They had it from brand new, and so that would make me about 7 years old. Well, because of the boxy style of it, you could recreate a Range Rover looking vehicle with Lego, with Meccano, both of which I was really keen on. And you could replicate the suspension because it was quite simple, just using some coil springs that you find off a pram or something like that. And I used to make up little Range Rovers and make things that would articulate the suspension in order to be able to give them a workout. Of course, then later in life, become a mechanic. And even though on a mechanic's wage you can't afford to buy Range Rovers, I did very early on get a Land Rover. So a lightweight Land Rover, 1973. I bought that in 1986, so it had only been decommissioned from the army for 3 years, and the person who had it previous to me had done quite a lot on it to make it a nice, comfortable vehicle. So it had got Rover P6 3.5 litre seats in it, nice big comfy leather seats. It had got a stereo module in the centre console. It got some extra Smith's clocks, etc., etc. And I loved that vehicle. It was great fun. That got me into a little bit of off-roading. Say off-road, actually green lanes, which are legal roads to drive. And if you've got the right vehicle, then you can use them. And so we'd do these steady little green lanes. And then I started living on a farm later on, just a cottage on a farm. And so I was doing work for the farm mechanically, and I bought another Land Rover Series 3. Similar age, about 1975-ish, that one. And again, it was battered and bruised, that one. Really wasn't mint condition like the first one was. But things had changed. I was using it for work. I wasn't using it just to drive around in. So I'd also got an Audi Quattro at the time. So that was the main car for going out in, days out, whatever. But the Land Rover was just an everyday work vehicle. So then move on a little bit further, and I bought my first Range Rover. That was a 1994 Vogue SE, and it should have had a 2.5 litre engine in it, but it had been to a place in Poole in Dorset, and it had now got a 3.5 litre diesel in it, which give it quite a bit of oomph. A Nissan 3.5 litre little truck diesel. So again, a vehicle that I enjoyed immensely, and the only reason that left the household was somebody put the back window through and set fire to it, burnt it out completely. Very disappointing. I just bought at that point my first P38, and so that was parked right next to it when it was being burnt out. As was my wife's Freelander. Freelander suffered about £1,000 worth of melted plastics on it. The P38 was just far enough away to not get damaged. So again, enjoyed the P38, and that was a very nice vehicle, and we spent a lot of time in that one. Since then I've had, we're up to about 10 Range Rovers now, and I've also got a Discovery, which I'm sat in now, Discovery 2, and I tried a Discovery 1 early on. I saw one at a good price, a nice vehicle, but the leg room for me in the front, the seat just wouldn't go back far enough to be comfortable, and it was because they tried to put 7-seat configuration into what was a Range Rover Classic chassis, and it just meant the leg room for all the seats was very short. The TD5 or the Discovery 2 that I'm sat in now is better in that they extended the back end for the 7-seat option, so that it gives a little bit more room. So I quite like this one. I enjoy it. And people say, oh, well, what about the reliability? Well, if you look after them, then the reliability is no worse than any other vehicle. This one's done 250,000 miles and it runs fine. Everything's nice on it, it just does the job, and no issues. But you have to look after them, and the problem is that people don't look after them because they're expensive. And once you get into sort of not fixing one problem, then another problem comes up, and they get to the point where it just becomes too expensive to do anything with them. And so if you get a problem come up, that's the time to fix it, get it sorted. And it'll only be small little niggles like a normal everyday car will have. The thing is, with a normal everyday car, they're that bit cheaper to fix, so people get it done. With a Land Rover, you have to expect that it's a premium car and it's going to cost. I just watched a guy on YouTube earlier on, and to do the just brake pads on his Porsche, because they're ceramics, he was talking £1,800 to replace the 4 sets of brake pads. Now, the Range Rover isn't going to be that expensive, but those are the sorts of things where you think, well, you talk premium cars, and to fit brake pads on any other car, we'd do a set of brake pads on a normal car all round for £160. So you're sticking extra noughts on the end when you get premium cars, and that's why Range Rovers, Land Rovers, etc., they don't get the money spent on them that they need for everyday servicing, etc., because it's expensive and people want to run them on a shoestring. That's when you start getting problems. That's when they start becoming unreliable, and then people buy one that's had that sort of mistreatment and they get problems with it, and then they go out on YouTube and they go on all other sorts of social media, Facebook, etc., and start giving the car a bad reputation. It's not the car's fault, it's just the car hasn't been looked after, it's been abused. And so you get one, you look after it, you service it right, and it will look after you. Like I say, this one's 250,000 miles, no issues. I've never had, on 10 Range Rovers, 2 Land Rovers and a Discovery and 2 Freelanders, I've never had a breakdown. I've never had anything go seriously wrong with them that's caused me any headache, because I've always serviced them and looked after them right, and that's what you've got to do. So when you think of becoming an enthusiast and a fan of the brand, well, you can't get a bigger fan than me, but it's because of the way they drive. So yes, they come with some biggish bills and routine maintenance, and if you do that, then you're not going to get the massive bills for breakages and breakdowns, but you are going to get some big bills, and you know, that's par for the course of a premium car. You can't run it on a Ford Fiesta budget or a Nissan Micra budget, it just won't happen. But get them off-road or on a green lane, and they really come into their own. And a Land Rover of this type of setup, where they're live axles, they move around slightly on the suspension, so you get this weird sort of sideward sway over the bumps. Nothing else sort of replicates that, really. Even the leaf spring Land Rovers don't do that, but all the coil spring ones that have got live axles, they have this movement, and it's addictive almost. And it gives them a nice feel off-road. They've got loads of articulation, so they don't struggle with grip like a lot of off-roaders do. Yes, the later ones have got traction control and everything else to get you through, but the early ones, because of the axle articulation, they didn't need it. and it made them better than anything else. Of course, Mercedes copied it, and other vehicles since, Toyota Land Cruisers, etc. They've started to copy it, and you end up with vehicles that have similar capabilities. But the way they drive on the road, the way they go when you're on green lanes or off-road, just makes them really fantastic, and that's why I love them. And that's where I'm going to end this video.